These are Algebra 1, Lesson 8.3 notes. We're going to look at factoring a trinomial today into its binomial factors. So I really want you guys to pay attention. I think this is the thing that kind of confuses people the most when they first look at it, but as you start doing it, you're going to realize it's really not that bad. So don't be intimidated at first when you see it. It gets a lot easier, I promise. Okay, so let's do our warm-up. So number 1 says, which pair of factors of 8 has a sum of 9? So we want to know what factors, when I multiply them together, of 8, give me 8, and if I add them, they give me 9. Well, our factors of 8 are 1, 2, 4, and 8. So which of these, when I multiply them together, give me 8? Well, 1 and 8, when I multiply them together, equal 8, and 2 times 4 equals 8. So which two pairs, the 1 and the 8 or the 2 and the 4, add up to 9? Well, 2 and 4 add up to 6, so it's not those. So it's 1 and 8, because when I multiply 1 and 8 together, they give me 8, and when I add them together, they give me 9. Okay, next one. Which pair of factors of 30 has a sum of negative 17? Okay, so we need to list all the factors of 30. So we know 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15, and 30. And if you guys look, it like kind of pairs together like this. So basically the pairs, those are the ones that when you multiply them together, they give you 30. So 1 times 30 equals 30. 2 times 15 equals 30. So which pairs add up together to give me negative 17? Well, the only ones that actually can give me 17 in any way when I add them together are 15 and 2. And it needs to be actually that both of them are going to be negative. So negative 2 and negative 15. Because when I multiply negative 2 times negative 15, I get 30. But if I add negative 2 and negative 15, I get negative 17. Okay, and then this last part of the warm-up wants us to FOIL, so we're going to multiply. So I'm going to get x squared plus 3x plus 2x plus 6. And notice, again, we've got to combine our like terms, so we get x squared plus 5x plus 6. And again, as you guys get faster with this, you can start combining the inner and outer terms into one step if you want. So let me show you what I mean by this. So if I do the first, r squared, I'm going to combine my outer and my inner. So negative 9r and positive 5r equals negative 4r. And then my last is 5 times negative 9, which is minus 45. If you still aren't comfortable with that, just keep boiling every step and combining your like terms. So we're going to look at factoring quadratic trinomials in the form x squared plus bx plus c. In chapter 7, we learned about how to multiply. Excuse me. Sorry about that. We learned about how to multiply two binomials using the distributive property or the FOIL method. So in this lesson, we're going to learn how to factor a trinomial back into the two binomials that you got before FOILing it. So just a reminder, for FOILing, FOIL stands for first terms multiplied together plus the outer terms multiplied together plus the inner terms multiplied together plus the last. So FOIL. That's just a quick reminder. Notice that if I multiply x plus 2 and x plus 5, I multiply those together, the constant term in the trinomial is the product, so meaning the constant at the end is the product of the two constants in the binomials. So this last term of the trinomial is the product of the two constants in the binomial. And you can use this fact to factor a trinomial into its binomial factors. We're basically going to look for numbers that are factors of this constant term, and that's going to help us to get back to what goes in here. The best method for this is the guess and check method, okay? You still have to kind of know what you're doing to an extent, but you're going to guess and check your answers. So we're going to look at the product of x plus 3 and x plus 4. So if we FOILed this out, okay, our inner and our outer terms, we would have 3x and 4x equals 7x. The coefficient of the middle term is the sum of 3 and 4, right? We have the middle added together. And this last term are these two multiplied together. So we need to remember that this last term are these two multiplied together, and the middle term comes from adding the inner and the outer together. So here we go. Okay, we know that we're going to need two sets of parentheses. All right, the first term, because it's x squared, we know that it's going to be an x times an x. Okay? Now, we need to figure out what factors, when I multiply them together, give me 36 and add up to give me 15. Okay? So our options for this are, I could do 1 and 36. I could do 2 and 18. I could do 3 and 12. I could do 9 and 4. And I think that's it. So which of these pairs, obviously they all multiply together to give me 36, which add up to 15? Well, 1 and 36, in no way can I add up to 15. 2 and 18, let's think about that. If I take 2 away from 18, that would give me 16, or if I added 2 to 18, that would only give me 20. So let's move on to the next one, 3 and 12. Do 3 and 12 add together to give me 15? Yeah, 12 plus 3 is 15. So we know that we're going to need a 12 here and a 3 here and plus signs in between. So let's check. Does this get us back to our original? Well, our first is x squared. Our inner is 12x. Our outer is 3x. And our last is 36. Do these add together to give me 15x? They do. So this trinomial has the two binomials of x plus 12 and x plus 3 as its solution. Here's how we know what signs to put in between in the parentheses. If you look at C, the last term in the trinomial, you know that if it's positive, the factors have to have the same sign, because a negative times a negative is a positive, and a positive times a positive is a positive. So they have to be the same sign. Whatever the sign of B is, that's going to tell you if the factor is positive or negative. So if this is positive, then both terms are positive. If this is negative, then both terms are negative. That's as long as this is positive. So that's going to help us to figure out what signs go in between. Okay, so we're going to start again with our two parentheses. And we know that we need an x at the beginning and x at the beginning. Well, let's look at our last sign. Our last sign is positive, so we know we need two of the same signs. Well, let's look back at the middle. The middle is a positive sign, so that means both of these are going to be positive. Okay? Now we need to figure out what numbers multiply together to give me 5 and add together to give me 6. Well, my only option is 5 times 1. So let's try that. If I FOILed this back, I'd get x squared. My inner would be 5x, and my outer would be 1x. Does 5x plus 1x equal 6x? Yes, it does. And then our last, 5 times 1, is 5. So the factored form of this trinomial is x plus 5 and x plus 1. Okay, let's try another one. So we need our parentheses. Again, our first term is still just an x squared, so we know we need an x. Since our last term is positive, we need the same signs in between. Now, which signs do we need? Since the middle is positive, they're both going to be positive. So what multiplies together to give me 9, but adds together to give me 6? Well, I could do 9 and 1, or I could do 3 and 3. 9 and 1, they don't add up to 6. 3 and 3, yes, they do. So we can check our answer. X squared plus 3x plus 3x plus 9. And this simplifies to x squared plus 3x, or 6x, sorry, plus 9, which is the same as the original. So the factored form of that equation, that trinomial, is x plus 3 times x plus 3. Next one. Okay. So we know we need our parentheses. We know that we need an x at the beginning. This sign is positive, therefore we need the same signs in between. But if you look, the middle is now negative, so that means both have to be negative. So if this is positive, they have to be the same sign, but since this is negative, it's going to be both negative. So what multiplies together to give me 15 and adds together to give me 8? So my options are 1 and 15 or 3 and 5. Well, 1 and 15 are not going to make 8, actually, so that doesn't work. So let's try 3 and 5. 3 times 5, negative 3 times negative 5 does equal 15. So our last term's right. So our inner is going to be negative 3x and our outer is negative 5x. When I add those together, they do indeed equal negative 8x. So your answer is correct. You did check correctly. And the reason we call this the guess and check method, you guys, is because sometimes the factors you pick out here won't add together to make up that middle term. So you've got to try a different number. Okay, so here's the new thing. If C is negative, so if there's a negative sign here, that means that the factors, when I factor it, have opposite signs. The way to know which one is which is whatever is the middle. So if it's positive, the one that is positive has to be the greater of the two in terms of absolute value. Okay? If it's negative in the middle, it would be the bigger negative absolute value, or the bigger no absolute value that would be negative. Let me show you. So we've got an x. Since this is negative, we need a positive and a negative. That's the only way we're going to make up a negative. So now our options are, we could do 1 and 20, 1 and 20, 2 and 10, or 5 and 4. Which of those make 1? Okay, because remember there's a 1 out here. Well, 20 and 1, they're not going to give me 1 in any way. Whether I subtract or add the 1, I can't get back to 1. 2 and 10. If I added 2 to 10, I would get 12, and if I subtracted 2 from 10, I would get 8, so that doesn't work. What about 5 and 4? If I added 5 and 4 together, that would give me 9. That doesn't work. However, if I subtracted 4 from 5, I could get back to 1. So we know that 5 and 4 work, but where should they go? Well, since the middle term is positive, that means I need more of the positive. So which of these has the bigger absolute value, 5 or 4? Well, 5 does. So that means that 5 is my positive and 4 is my negative. So let's check to make sure that works. X squared minus 4x plus 5x minus 20. If I combine my like terms, I get x squared plus 1x minus 20. So that is the same. So our solution did work, x plus 5 and x minus 4. Okay, let's try another one. I've got my two binomials. I'm going to start them with x. This is a negative, so I know that I need a positive and a negative. However, I've got more negatives in the middle now, so that's going to affect where the two other numbers go. So what numbers multiply together to give me 18, but I can combine in some way to make 3? So I could do 1 and 18, 2 and 9, or 3 and 6. Well, 1 and 18, I can't make that equal to 3 in any way, whether I add them, subtract them, whatever I do. 2 and 9, if I combine those in any way, I can't make 3 out of that. 3 and 6, I can, because I could take 3 away from 6. I could, either way, I could make that equal to 3. So which goes where? Well, since I have a negative in the middle, the bigger absolute value has to go with the negative sign. So 6 is bigger, so that has to go with the negative sign, and the 3 has to go here. So let's check. First, I'm going to have plus 3x minus 6x and then minus 18. These combine to make negative 3x. So this was correct. These are, in fact, the factors. That worked. So if you're having trouble remembering the rules for like which ones are positive, which ones are negative, you can always try negative, positive signs, whatever you want to try, and just FOIL it back and see if it works to what you need it to work. If it doesn't work, you try something else. So if you don't get so caught up in the memorizing that it makes you panic. It's okay if you can't memorize it all. Okay, a polynomial and the factored form of the polynomial are the same thing. So if I had x squared plus 6x plus 5, that is the same thing as x plus 5 and x plus 1. They are equal, okay? They're the same thing. And when you evaluate these two expressions for the same variable value, you'll get the same result. So whether I plug x equals 1 into the first one or the second, I would get the same answer. So here's just a little example to show this. So we're going to factor this. So we know we need a y and a y. And we know that since this is positive, I need the same sign. And since this is positive, it's going to be two positives. So what multiplies together to give me 21 and adds together to give me 10? Well, that would be 7 and 3. So 7y plus 7 times y plus 3 is the same thing as y squared plus 10y plus 21. So here's how we're going to show you. Here's the factored form. Here's the regular polynomial. If I plugged y equals 0 in, I'll get 21. If I plug y equals 0 over here, I get 21. If I plug 1 in here, I get 1 plus 7 times 1 plus 3. So I'm going to get 8 times 3, or 4, sorry, which is 32. If I plug 1 in over here, I get 1 plus 10 plus 21, which equals 32. If I plug 2 in on this side, I'll get 2 plus 7 is 9. 2 plus 3 is 6. 9 times 6 is 54. Sorry to think about that. 2 squared is 4. 10 times 2 is 20. Plus 21, that's going to equal 4. Did I do that wrong? 41, 42, 43, 44. What did I do? 20 plus 21. This should equal 54 still. 9. Oh, this equals 5. That's why. I lied. Okay, so that should be 45. Sorry, my bad. Because 2 plus 3 is 5. So then over here, I'm going to get 20 plus 21 is 41 plus 4 is 45. If I plug 3 into the factor form, I get 3 plus 7 is 10. 3 plus 3 is 6, so I get 60. If I plugged 3 into the non-factored form, I'd get 9 plus 30 plus 21, so I would get 60 as well. And then lastly, 4 plus 7, I'm going to get 11 times 7, so I should get 77. And then 4 squared is 8, or is 16, plus 40 plus 21, and I should still get 77. So again, this is just showing you that the factored form is equal to the regular polynomial form. And I think as you guys just do more of the factoring with this, it'll come with practice. So don't freak out too much. Okay, that is all.